Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Win the Hour, Win the Day. And today I'm ready to dive in with LinkedIn with Tracy Enos. It's going to be spectacular. All right. She's going to put the fun back in LinkedIn and make it, way more dynamic and interesting than some of us think it may be. So Tracy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me today.
Okay, Tracy, when we first talked, what I thought was fascinating, one of the things that you threw out at me right away was the engagement of LinkedIn has increased 50% over 2020 with all the craziness going on in the world. There was suddenly an influx to LinkedIn. So why don't we start there and you tell us why we're missing the boat if we're not utilizing LinkedIn?
Well, yeah, so that statistic came from LinkedIn last May, I believe, and they'd sent, it was like a newsletter. I got it in an email, and they stated that the activity in LinkedIn had increased by 55% over 2019. And that was the first 60 days of the pandemic in the lockdown. So
sorry, 2019 or 2020? You just said 2019.
So this is what May of 2020.
Okay.
They were doing the stats from all of 2019 in a matter of 60 days. LinkedIn had increased their activity by 55% over all of 2019 in the first couple months of the lockdown.
Okay.
Which is incredible. You know, absolutely. So what that tells me is a couple things. One, a lot of companies were having to do deep dives and figure out how they're going to keep their employees productive. And so if we're not going to be in the office, how are we going to continue to, generate sales and leads and stay fresh in front of people's minds? Well, what better platform to use but LinkedIn, right? For businesses.
Okay. So you're saying the companies that were still relying on, physical networking and all that other stuff, now we are forced to moving virtual. So now that has generated a lot more activity on LinkedIn. But, you guys out there, the entrepreneurs, the tried and true, have been working maybe from your home office from the get-go. How, Tracy, does that impact them if we're not talking about big companies? It's just more people are on LinkedIn?
Well, I think, a lot of us were either laid off or furloughed or whatever. People are still dabbling in social media. They're just, I'm not saying everybody has a child that they had to do, virtual learning with or whatever, but people tend to scroll through LinkedIn. But just because they have an account doesn't mean they were active until this all happened. So I think there could be, a multiple multiple reasons why people.
Hold on. I think what we'll do is start over because I think we're going down a path that I don't know how to rescue. So like a second ago, you said, a lot of us were laid off or furloughed or whatever. We're talking to entrepreneurs that's not their path.
Well, all right. But that's part of why the activity increased though is.
Okay. So, that's fine. So I just want to make sure, because when you say a lot of us, then I assume that the audience thinks like that's what we have in common. So it sounds like we're talking to a different audience. That's all.
All right. So then we can come back and go, a lot of the entrepreneurs are working with these companies and probably able to get in front of them before because they weren't active in LinkedIn and now they are.
Okay. And I wouldn't, if we were deeper in it, I wouldn't have cut you off, but I thought, well, we're 2 minutes and 30 seconds in. I thought, let's just make sure we're on the right path to get go, if that's okay. All right. Let's do that. Okay, no problem. We'll start this over. We'll have fun. I promise. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Win the Hour, Win the Day. And I am your host, Chris Ward. And today we have Tracy Enos in the house, and she's going to get us excited about LinkedIn. No pressure, Tracy, but she is going to get us excited about LinkedIn. Welcome to the show, Tracy.
Thanks, Chris. I'm excited to be here today.
Okay. So Tracy, we know that there's been, well, I say we know, you enlightened me when we first started chatting that there's been this big influx as far as activity goes on LinkedIn. And so it's becoming more robust and there's more, I guess, opportunity for engagement. So why don't we start there? You reported to me, well, I'll let you tell the report. Go ahead. So you sound intelligent instead of me. What do I know? I'm just repeating what you said, right?
Right. And actually, sometimes you can repeat it better than I can. So, no, actually, LinkedIn came out with a statistic last May that stated that their activity over the first 60 days of the pandemic, the lockdown part of the pandemic, their activity in LinkedIn increased by 55% over all of 2019. So
Okay.
what that tells me is that, a lot of companies who were doing traditional, let's say, sales face to face or cold calling, or they're very local, are now having to figure out ways to keep the doors open, right?
Right.
The sales coming in. And so that, I believe, is part of the flux in engagement with LinkedIn, the increased influx in engagement. Now, for entrepreneurs, what did that mean for entrepreneurs? Well, for those of you who are probably maybe having a difficult time getting in front of those people because they were not available, because they're not active and they're not in LinkedIn and they're not online. This was a great opportunity for them now to start reaching people that they probably didn't have access to in the past.
Okay, that's profound. All right, so that first quarter, it went up significantly. All right, so let's just address the elephant in the room. By the way, I don't know where that saying came from. When was there actually ever an elephant in the room? But we'll Google that later. So anyhow, so what I would say is, I feel like I'm some sort of junkie. I really like LinkedIn, and I think I've done a decent job on my profile page. I know when we have LinkedIn specialists on, they'll talk about, forward facing and all the mistakes you can make. It's not a resume. So we've talked about that on the show. And I think I do a fairly decent job of that, at least better than most, not as good as some. So then, but what happens is I still struggle with engagement on LinkedIn. If I do something on Facebook, it's a higher engagement. And then I think, okay, well, maybe that's just because I'm resorting back to that. It's easier, it's quicker. And I'm used to going back there. I've built maybe more of a community than on LinkedIn. And I know LinkedIn has a bad rap for communication as far as somebody in your inbox. There was that whole spammy, hi, how are you? Want to buy from me? So I think that's starting to slow down now, but I still struggle with, even myself, how to engage somebody through messaging. I don't get it. It just doesn't go well. Like, it either comes off too shallow, like I'm saying, I don't want to go from, I would never say this, but the, hey, how are you? Or I checked out your profile, kind of cool, whatever, to the other extreme, which is salesy. So where's the sweet spot as far as LinkedIn inbox goes?
I think back when you're sitting around with a bunch of your friends, right? And how would you communicate with them? Like, let's say your guys are all out having a cocktail. Are you super formal with them while you're out at the bar having a cocktail or the restaurant? Or are you very casual with them and just asking them questions? Being very low key, asking questions about them. And maybe these aren't people real well, just,
right.
Just folks that you maybe just met.
So could you give me an example of these questions? Because I find it comes off like, I don't know, it just comes off insincere. Like, unless I have something directly like, oh, we grew up in the same town, or I see you're a fan of this. So you're scrolling their page and I'm trying to think, okay, what can I engage them with other than the fact that they took the same LinkedIn course that I took and now we're trying to engage each other, right?
Right. Well, actually, those are great conversation starters. So, you got to break the ice somehow, right?
Okay.
So even if you were meeting somebody face to face for the first time and weren't using a social media's messaging inbox,
okay,
you want to try to find something in common with that person prior to the meeting, wouldn't you? So
yes.
Down, you're just not going straight to business. You're not going straight to the sale. You're going to have a polite conversation. And I think that's what people forget when it comes to that inbox is, having that conversation. I like to ask people when first of all, I try a little bit of humor in my connection request. Right. And that's what gets a lot of people to reply. They'll reply without me even asking them or sending out the first welcome message after they connect, which I love. Not everybody, but I love that because now they're already engaged and we can start a conversation. Okay. Right. So it makes it a little bit easier. But if for somebody who hasn't responded to that and they just hit the connect button or accept the connect, then I'm going to ask them about them. Tell me a little bit more about you. Yeah, I've read your profile, but I want to know something that's not in that profile. Tell me a little bit more about you, about your business, about whatever your question might be, People love to talk about themselves. Get them talking about themselves.
Do you find, and of course you're telling me, so you must find that work. So hold on, let me unpack this for a second here. All right. So first of all, I find on Facebook, people love when I leave them an audio message instead of typing it all out, because there's personality and the real person behind that. Do you see any difference between that and LinkedIn, typing out or audio?
No, I honestly like that. However, you can only do audio through smartphone. You cannot do it on desktop or laptop. So I think a lot of this has to do with who are you talking to? Are you talking to the CEO of a $100 million corporation? Or are you talking to, a coach or a consultant? How are they utilizing, LinkedIn? Are they utilizing it from a laptop or a desktop, or are they using their mobile phone?
So they can't hear it. They can't hear it if they're on a desktop.
You can't even, well, yeah, but you can't create one from a desktop.
But they can hear it from a desktop. Yes. Okay. All right. I think what happens too is, I think we go into like somewhere in our mind, LinkedIn is where the grownups play. And so I think when you go into the messaging, you're right. You stiffen up because you're like, oh, this is a professional setting versus Facebook, which is a little bit more relaxed. I'm supposed to wear my jeans and t-shirt over here. Here I dressed up. Now I'm trying to sound important and it's coming off stiff. So, all right. So now we'll try to be a little bit more engaging. But then if somebody says to me, and I'll just be honest, I'm a very flawed and patient human being. Okay. So I'm not like, I love interviewing people. I love talking to you. I love just getting to know people. However, I don't enjoy small talk or filler conversation. So like when you're getting a haircut and they say, what are your plans this weekend? What do you care? Right? I'll talk to you about anything, but make it something that you actually care about. So if somebody said to me, tell me something about you that's not on your profile, I don't think I would nibble at that, but maybe that just means I'm not your people. So I don't know.
And it doesn't work. That message doesn't work for everybody.
Right. Okay.
So there's not a one size fits all when it comes
to point. Messaging. Okay.
So I may target the same industry. Because I have like maybe my goal and a campaign in mind, but not everybody's going to come back and that message isn't going to resonate with everybody, Right. So, for example, my connection request is about, if it's not too cheesy, this message wasn't too cheesy, let's connect. And I get a lot of positive reaction to it. And I've got a couple naysayers, and then I get the people that just won't connect at all. So it's like I said, it's not a one size fits all, but that's if you're doing it, I think, more on a mass type of, campaign. But if you are really dialed into, let's say, your hot 100, I really honestly think you're going to know those 100 people, and you're going to do your due diligence, and you're going to go look at their website. You're going to look at their other social media. You're going to really deep dive because you want to get to know them. That's like trying to connect with that $100 million CEO.
I think too, you know what, my mindset is everything, right? And I think, again, I know for me is, these are all things that I think I do well in Facebook. Like I'll leave an audio message and I always check out their profile before and I engage, and then I make a comment and I say something to them in an audio message, what I liked or what they do well or whatever. But on LinkedIn, again, I think you go and then you throw your shoulders back and stiffen up and fix your shirt. And somewhere in my brain, because I always say your strengths are also your weaknesses, somewhere in my brain, you're right, I start to systematize this. Okay, what's the recipe for LinkedIn? Because it seems like it's a professional setting. So then I go to like a system, like I'm at work, when you're right, we're networking, we're engaging. And it's not how I do it on Facebook, but yet somehow all the professional people I'm looking at on LinkedIn change my attitude and I get business oriented versus networking. So I think these are really subtle but profound, profound points you're making.
I do. And also too, I think people's guards are really up on LinkedIn in the inbox because of all the spam, or the minute somebody connects with you, they're going through the throat, the jugular, and trying them to sell you their thing. You know, well, how do you know I need your thing or even want your thing until you know me and have a conversation with me? So I think people are already guards up, and so I think it makes messaging a little bit more difficult to get somebody to respond because that guard is already up.
You're right. Because when I get a message where it seems sincere, it's so refreshing. It's like a tall glass of water on a hot summer's day. And like, I'm all over that person. This is my new best friend because we're having a real conversation on LinkedIn versus the, may I ask 2 questions about your business? And then they ask one more. And could I get you on a call? Because we could change your life. And you don't even know what I do. Okay, perfect. All right. So yeah. So you held your own, Tracy, and you, I was pushing. I'm like, I'm not buying it, but you convinced me. All right. So I always say you don't know what you don't know. Well, actually, I didn't coin that phrase. So tell us what else you think is we're really dropping the ball on.
I think it's the foundation work. I mean, I harp this all the time. Look, you can't just leave your profile from 2009.
Right.
You've got to really update your profile. I mean, and a lot of people don't want to do it the way that we do it, and that's okay. I still think you should have some human to your profile. It's a personal profile, definitely not a company page. But also you got to really, who is it that you're wanting to work with in LinkedIn? You need to share who that is in LinkedIn. What is it that you do for them? How you do it, how you're different than the competition. If you don't know who your competition is, then you shouldn't be filling out a profile till you go do that foundation background work, right? And then at the end of the day, this is what they care about. What's in it for them? What results and outcomes can they expect working with you over somebody else? That's what I think a lot of people are missing. They just want to regurgitate how amazing that they are. Look at me. I'm the expert. I'm the authority. And I'm just, amazing. And then they go and they expect all these wonderful things happen, because believe it or not, people are going to go and they're going to look at your profile. And depending on how interesting it is above the fold, that's the background photo, your headline, and your first few sentences in the about section, where somebody wants to go click see more, that's going to maybe, encourage them to read the rest of your profile. What's your work experience? Tell me a little bit more about you, the human side of you, organizations, volunteer work, publications, projects that you're particularly proud of, any honors and awards. And I think nowadays with some of the new trainings out there from the new gurus out there, they're forgetting the rest of the profile. And I really honestly think that a well filled out profile will go a lot farther than just taking, the few sections and being done with it. Because at the end of the day, you still have two types of people in LinkedIn. You're going to have the people that skim, and you're going to have the linear readers. And those linear readers will read everything top to bottom in that profile. So if you're forgetting or not even filling out the rest of those sections, you could be losing big opportunity. People want to feel like they know you first before they ever respond to you or reach out to you.
Yeah. And you bring up a couple really good points. First of all, again, I think we get seduced into, it's almost like back in the day when you go into maybe a trade show and you're sitting, you go into a hotel that has, big fancy tablecloths. So you're like, oh, good thing I wore a business jacket. Right. So I think somehow when you pop into LinkedIn, whether you mean to or not, or maybe it's just my weak mind, it just changes the dynamics. Right. So I think what you're saying too is even in your profile, make it chatty and conversational. It's not a resume. And I've had to go back and relook at that a couple of times and say, okay, here I'm doing a bio, like I'm whatever, trying to convince people of here's my brochure. That's horrible. That sounds dry. Let's change it again. And I think to that point too, it's so easy to go into LinkedIn and then go to do what you do. And I try really hard, like once a month, to reread mine. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Or I could say this better now, or a client says this, so I'm going to change that. So it's so easy just to forget it. And you think, oh, thank heavens I got it filled out. There's enough for me to do. And then you don't even read your own stuff because you did it once and it seemed brilliant that day. So I guess repurposing that profile, I think, would be helpful as well.
Yeah, not a set it and forget it strategy, especially as your business grows and changes, and your profile should reflect that as well. So maybe in the beginning you started working with, like I did, I started working with, commercial roofers across the country or other digital marketing agencies across the country or in Canada. I don't do that anymore. Right. My business has grown tremendously, and now I work with a different type of clientele, but no one would know that if I didn't change my profile.
Or even the language you use now compared to 6 months ago for the same client tweaks. Now, Can I ask you, do you have a strategy when you see that people have looked at your profile? How do you follow up with that? Do you do anything there?
Oh yeah. So, if you're a free user, you only get to see the first 5 people every day that's looked at your
Okay.
profile. So you need to be at least Business Premium or Sales Navigator to get the last 90 days worth of folks. Do
Okay.
that. You should go in there daily or weekly and just reach out to those people. Definitely. So whether they're first connections or second connections or whatever, you can come up with something. I mean, we don't need to be so direct and say, hey, I saw you checking out my profile.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you could. I test everything. So not everything I do is a home run, right? I have a lot of flops. Trust me. That's why I do what I do, so I can help everybody else, as I know what the
Right.
flops are and what's working for me. But yeah, go in there and say, you might want to say, yeah, I saw that you were checking out my profile. Look, I would love to connect with you. I checked out yours as well. And you're
Yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting business, or you're very interesting profile, and then pick something out of there that you really liked that you can mention. That way they know you've actually looked at theirs instead of just sent them a generic template,
Heaven help us all. I think what I'm hearing from you, Tracy, over and over again, is I think for me, anyhow, I can only speak for me. I hope I'm not the only one. Maybe you guys out there are doing it too. I'm overthinking it. I'm overthinking it. You tend to think of like Facebook in my mind, like high school or college, and then LinkedIn is like whatever university of some sort, post-secondary education. And so it's too polished, it's too professional. Just talk, just network, just try different things. Don't have like this big sweeping strategy. Okay, what's our new campaign? Like these are all big, heavy-handed, limiting words. Just try stuff and talk to real people.
you can have a campaign because you want to be able um, to analyze what your results are. How many messages did I send?
Right.
How many people responded? What message did they respond to the
Right.
most, or
Okay.
what connection requests they respond to most? And you can get super analytical with this, and I am not that girl. So,
Okay.
so, but you just get in there and just start talking. And just because you have, like, say, a winning message, don't get me wrong, this has happened to me. I get fired back with something completely off the wall, like, holy cow, where did that come from? Kind of response. And you never know who's behind that screen and what their day is
Yeah.
that day, so you can't just take those things to heart either. It happened to me a few years ago, especially when I first started. And when I was just like Chris, just like you guys are now, you're trying to be super polished, super professional. I mean, things have changed a lot since back in 2012, but I got just totally reamed, not only in my inbox, but a group I created, and it went to everybody that was in that group. And I'm telling you, I was so embarrassed. And this guy was local here in Kansas City. And I almost quit doing this because I took it too personal. And he was like, it was like an article or something I wrote, and he was picking apart. Oh, I misspelled a word. And then he was picking.
Oh, that's.
I mean, it was very disheartening, and I just wanted to quit. And then I talked to a colleague of mine who actually I met on LinkedIn, and we went to lunch, and he says, look, he's 30-year veteran in the business. He's a career and executive coach. He was a vice president of the company he was at the time. And he sat me down and says, don't let this stop what you're doing just because you have one creep out there doing what he's doing. So now I find it a challenge. So I've got like attorneys from across the country, and I've got, people from different industries, and they will fire back at me in the inbox, and I will fire back.
Yeah. First of all, hello, spelling Nazis. There must be something else you can do with your time. Because first of all, I like to argue now it's not even spelling. Maybe it's just a typo. Hello, right? Moving on. And is that the whole thing you read? That's the only thing you learned from my article. So I have no patience for that. I think that's just people being mean. So stop being mean. But again, you do get over what I've learned is I learned from somebody years ago, and he said, if you don't have pushback online, then you don't have a big enough audience, meaning like you can't just be talking to everyone that knows, likes, and trusts you and thinks you're awesome, because then you're not reaching new people. So there's always going to be a little pushback, right?
And I get it, promise.
Yeah.
I find it a challenge. I don't win them all. but I've won a few over.
Yeah.
So
if they get real cranky with me, certainly on Facebook, I do this. On Facebook, I just unfriend them. Like, I think you're not my people. Like, if you just start going off on craziness, I'm like, okay, we don't have a lot to talk about. I'm not here to convert you. So we're good.
right.
So
You have that opportunity to do that in LinkedIn too. You can block them. You can mute.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I'm all about that. I think the world should have that. The outside physical world. I'm going to block you. No eye contact, please. All right. I know you also mentioned at one point talking about low hanging fruit. What does that mean to you?
Look, you're gonna find people with the right message at the right time. It's gonna happen.
Okay.
And so, but I don't want you to think that is gonna happen all the time. I think when people first get started, like the messages we just talked about a few minutes ago about the couple things about your business, and you try to get them on the phone immediately and whatever, that still works. It really does. But that's your low hanging fruit. And eventually that fruit is going to dry up.
Okay.
So you really have to, look, if you're just really getting started with LinkedIn and that's what and that's what's working for you now, great. But I just want you to step back a minute and start developing, other types of messaging that you can test out. Everything's a test, and I'm going to let you know, like I said, I flop a lot.
Okay.
And I don't always have hit runs, but I do templatize everything because I don't want to come up with that thought every time.
Right.
So depending on what that person says, in a response, a lot of times I can formulate common responses.
Okay.
And then I create a doc with common responses, and then I have responses back to those. And this keeps me very productive and quick in LinkedIn.
Right.
When I have this available to me, especially when you have a major campaign and you got 100 messages you got to reply to, but not everybody's going to get the same message depending on what the response was in return.
Right. That makes sense to me, because I know when we were launching the outsourcing playbook for busy entrepreneurs, you're going to get a certain amount of questions. So then you can just copy and paste and reply to that. So what you're saying is, you're testing to unpack this, you're testing your approaches, because you don't want to think what I always talk about in our business, win the hour, win the day. It's really about what we call super toolkits and your win team, what is next team. And it's really about not systems, because those tend to be thought of as the corporate world, and they're made to cover liability, and they're made not by the end user mind. But what happens is, if you don't have something in play like our super toolkits, what I would say to people is, you think, I have this great idea, and you find out, no, I had that 3 months ago, it just fell off and we didn't do anything about it, or we ran out of paper and stopped doing that, or something, right? So you want to make sure that you're not recycling your great ideas, that you have them and you can say, okay, we've already tried that. And then there's only going to really be so many responses. So that's going to save you some time by saying, okay, here's a couple of our canned responses, and we can dive in and be more personable once we get through those. Right. If appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I'll do like a hybrid of a response. I have a template, and it's a typical response. Like, let's say when somebody first connects with me, but a lot of times they'll send a response before you get to send your welcome message out. Right. So it'll be hybrid. And so I will reply within that canned response to what they were messaging me about, along with my questions or whatever I wanted to ask in the welcome message. So sometimes I hybrid it. So
now,
but to be able to do that, typing every single message individually, I just copy, paste, and then edit.
Now, I know you didn't mention this, because we've had this from other people on the show, but I can't stress this enough. I just want to mention this since we're talking about LinkedIn. If you're reaching out to make a connection with somebody, boy, oh boy, when I'm scrolling through connections and I see somebody has actually said, hey, here's why I'm connecting with you, I go right to them and answer that. So it's night and day versus just some blanket connection, want to connect, why? I certainly personalize my connections, but it really makes a difference when I'm on the receiving end.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm talking about after they've connected. That's my.
Oh, yeah. But you mentioned when you're making a connection, I just wanted to tie that back in. I'm just supporting everything you're saying, Tracy. That's all.
No, I didn't think you were arguing with me.
Yeah. No, we don't do that here on the show. Although I do challenge. Sometimes I give a little pushback. All right. So we have a couple of minutes.
How about that? There's all.
Yeah. So we have a couple of minutes left. And so what do you think, if you have one last thing to tell us about LinkedIn, that as far as, what makes a difference, what are your parting words that you want us to know about LinkedIn?
Lots of changes.
Okay.
Lots, especially since you and I talked.
Okay.
They now have a new creator profile. So when you go into your dashboard, only you can see this. When you're logged into your LinkedIn profile, and then you just scroll down where it says your dashboard, and it has kind of your stats of, how many people viewed your profile, how many people were searching for you, and what your last post views were.
Yeah.
Right underneath there, it says creator. And now you can turn that on, and that's going to change up your profile some. So for those people who like to do video or doing LinkedIn lives, or doing a lot of content in the news feed, you'll now have some opportunity to be more creative. So your profile photo will turn into like a little intro video that you can do.
Oh, okay.
And then instead of your about section being right below, your name and your headline, your featured section is going to float above that. So people see your content first.
Okay.
And I don't know this yet because I was on Clubhouse with some of the LinkedIn and Microsoft employees, some of the creators of this, some of the tech guys. And then one of the girls from Microsoft was leading the conversation. And I think, but I haven't switched mine on yet, I think your background photo might be your latest LinkedIn Live. Not sure about that one, but I'm doing a LinkedIn Live this week, so I will find out. But but the only thing I'm not really keen on with this is that your connect button turns automatically into a follow button.
Okay.
And yes, there are ways, to still grow your network with a follow button. It just takes a few more additional steps, which I see a lot of people getting lazy over. If you really want to develop long-lasting business relationships, that's the only caveat that I have about that. I really wish they would give an option, connect or follow. So
there was a big push a while back to switch from connect to follow, to have people follow you versus connecting with you.
You can still do that, but it takes a couple steps to go find your follow button and change it from a connect to a follow. But you can do it now for your regular profile.
The question begs to be asked: what do you see as the difference? Why do I want connect? Why do I want follow?
It's for the creators that want followers, that we're going Instagram.
Oh, I see. Okay. And prior to this, I want to have connections because I want to be connected to these people.
Right. It's a business network. It's networking. It's business networking. And I think LinkedIn wants to appease the younger generation on LinkedIn as well as the rest of us.
Gotcha.
But I wish I could have
She said I wasn't young. I'm just saying. Did everybody take note to that? Just saying. Her interview is about to wrap up now, boys and girls.
So I really wish I had the best of both worlds, and maybe they'll come up with a hybrid version of this as well. Would be nice.
Okay, Tracy, you've been fantastic. Wonderful. This was very helpful. It was a refreshing and different approach to LinkedIn than we've had before. And that's what we're all here about on Win the Hour, Win the Day. Always get into your next win now. And, something that we can stop and say, okay, we've listened to the show. Let's hop on LinkedIn and take a look. And you've given us a lot to look for and look at. So I'm going to answer for you. I always say to people, hey, where can they find you? More of your brilliance and all that stuff. I would suspect we should all rush over to LinkedIn and check out Tracy Enos.
And right now I have the regular profile. I'm not in creator mode, so you can send me a connection request.
Fabulous. All right. Well, we already connected and I'm thankful for that. Everyone else, check her out. And until the next episode, this is Chris Ward, Win the Hour, Win the Day.